First things first, let's get into the Cam Reddish situation. And Cam Reddish is not a superstar in this league, not even close. But Cam Reddish's name has been in the mix of a lot of conversations for the last couple of weeks. And there were 7 teams that were interested in Cam Reddish. And Atlanta was looking to toss him away, move forward without him, because after drafting Hunter and different trades over the last couple of years, they've built this team really through young. And to me, Cam Reddish wasn't in their plans for the future. Cam Reddish, when he was drafted, he was a top 10 pick. I think he was drafted at 8. A lot of people liked Cam Reddish because his body and his shooting ability fit the NBA. But what has happened the last couple of years is injuries, not fitting into the offense, not really playing where they thought he was going to play at the position he was going to play, and really structural as a three-point shooter in the NBA. He really hasn't turned into the player that Atlanta thought he was going to be. But not only that, the promise of some of the youngsters that they brought in over the last 2 years in the draft, building their logical offense through one guy, and that's Trae Young, it really has affected Cam Reddish's growth and really where Cam Reddish could have been as an NBA player early in his career. Now, he is 22 years old. He's going to be looking for a contract in the offseason. He wants to make about $10 to $15 million a year. I don't know if he's worth that yet, and he might even be asking for more, like a Tim Hardaway contract, 17-4-4. I don't know what he's absolutely looking for. And with the new CBA, the new TV deals that the NBA has gotten, it's putting the Knicks in a situation where they're going to have to find out who Cam Reddish is and what Cam Reddish is this year, because they're going to have to extend him. Remember, the Knicks have a lot of money, and they could sign Cam Reddish, but if they sign Cam Reddish, they're probably going to have to start to decide what they're going to do with R.J. Barrett. Because RJ, once Cam Reddish gets signed, RJ is going to be looking for that contract too. RJ is the better player. But getting Cam Reddish for really a bag of buckets of fish.
We can call Kevin Knox a fish. There's nothing wrong with that.
You look at the position that the Knicks are in. They're in a position that if Cam Reddish turns out to be a decent player, they didn't have to trade anything away from a guy that could be a starter on this team, could average between 18 and 20 points a game, could be a very important piece defensively on the perimeter because he's a very good defender. He fits Tom Thibodeau's thought on the defensive side of the ball. But the question is Cam Reddish what he has been with Atlanta? Speedy, that's where the Knicks are going to have to figure out what this kid could be in New York.
I'll admit to the Weekend Crunch crowd, because we didn't have the show at the time of that draft. I actually, out of that draft, had Reddish ranked above Barrett. Him number 3, Barrett number 4, Zion and Ja Morant obviously 1 and 2. So obviously I'm wrong on that, but still he has a lot of upside. 22 years old, a 3-and-D guy, which is perfect for today's game. And in Atlanta, it was a lot harder for him to get in that rotation once he started struggling because they had other guys in the mix. Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, like you mentioned, now Bogdan Bogdanovic as well in that mix of these wings. John Collins sometimes is a 3, even though he mostly plays 4, and they really don't have that kind of room for him to be able to develop his full potential that way. Cam Reddish didn't want to be a bench player. He wanted to be able to play, even if he is a bench player, he wanted to play a good amount of minutes, which wasn't going to happen with Atlanta. Now he'll get that chance with the Knicks. If he gets his shot going, his three-point shot is very good when it's efficient. And he's had his shooting slumps. Even at Duke at the end of the season, had a bad shooting slump into the NCAA tournament as well. So he definitely gets in his own head sometimes, but he is a very talented player with still some upside too. I was never the biggest Kevin Knox fan, so good riddance to him. And then the Knicks have 3 first-round picks, so they essentially traded back, got Cam Reddish and Quentin Grimes for whatever those picks would have been in that draft. Assuming that Reddish pans out to what he's supposed to be, they definitely can make out on that. And Barrett, again, that's going to motivate the Knicks to keep him. Barrett, I don't think he's worthy of the max contract right now with the way he's played, but again, he might even take less to stay with the Knicks now that they have Reddish too, so that could create a lot more opportunity.
When I was listening to possible trades that could have happened with Atlanta and the Knicks, they wanted Grimes. And heads up for a guy like Cam Reddish, and the Knicks were not going to give up Grimes. Grimes looks like he's going to be a player for this team in the future. On a weakness the Knicks have been for really the last 7-8 years with the wing position, now it's really going into the season, and it's been their strength of this team. So who would have thought the weakness of this team has become their strength? So I look at Cam Reddish, I look at Grimes, I look at McBride, I look at the guard position. They have a lot of big guards that could play multiple positions, defensively and offensively. The question is Tom Thibodeau the guy moving forward that's going to push this team to the next level? I don't know. I love Tom Thibodeau because I think his culture of defense has has really brought this team alive. But this year, the defensive side of the ball and really the dysfunction of Julius Randle on the court, and I say dysfunction because I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to be here. Even when he's having a bad game, he doesn't take responsibility for himself. He's talking about his teammates, and he's talking about where the coaches should put him. Then he's attacking the fans because they're booing him because he's not playing well. He gives them a thumbs down, and then he tells them to go F themselves. So that doesn't help the situation either. The fans were chanting MVP last year. Throughout the season, he didn't win the MVP. He was comeback player of the year. And then all of a sudden this year, where we wanted to see him do it back-to-back years, now there's a crowd, now people are on him, and they're expecting him, after he gets his new contract, $160 million. Yes, he took less, but nevertheless, he's not the same player he was last year.
Not even close. The regression of 5 points a game from where he was last year, 24.1 to 19 now. 4.9 assists, which is still good for his career total, but still is down from last year where he had 6. And this is the bigger problem. He is shooting 41.4%. That is sad. That's not great in college basketball, where most of them average around 44, 45. That's bad in college basketball. That's atrocious for the NBA. You could get away, if you're a top-notch three-point shooter, you can get away with shooting 47, 48% in certain years. If you're shooting any less than that, there are some concerns, and that's 6 percentage points down, and he's wasting possessions. I know his assist totals have still been good in certain games, but even that's starting to become inconsistent to where it was in the beginning of the season. Not shooting well down the stretch in games. That's a big problem for a guy that's supposed to be a quote-unquote number one option. You're not even close to showing that kind of thing, and you still think you are, as indicated last week of what happened after R.J. Barrett hit the buzzer beater. He's not happy about R.J. Barrett getting on a hot streak.
He's jealous.
That's not a good look for a guy that took less money so the Knicks could get another superstar player. Okay, well, have that kind of mentality of, all right, I'm accepting the role of a second or third option. Yeah, that's not the mentality you want to have when your youngster, should be superstar youngster with upside, gets hot. Let him play well. Embrace him playing well.
That's not his culture. His culture, in Julius Randle's eyes, is just being in charge, being the leader, and being everything. And I call it a culture because we've seen this over and over again with different Knicks. Carmelo Anthony was the same way. It was his culture. It was his thought to control the ball and seize the moment. We all know what Julius Randle is. He is not Carmelo Anthony, nor will he ever be Carmelo Anthony. Now, that doesn't mean that Julius Randle can't be a great player and an important piece to this team's growth, but I don't know what he is. And I don't know if he's a second option or a third option. He's damn well not a first option. So the Knicks need to figure out, is he the guy moving forward that you want to move forward with, knowing that his contract is absolutely worthy to trade? And number two is, if RJ becomes that number one guy or even a number two guy, and then you have other pieces, other guys like Grimes or Reddish or whoever they have, youngsters, Obi Toppin being another one who should be playing.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense why he's not playing. When he is on the court, he's efficient. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. But they could bring in another superstar, and I'm just saying, look what Phoenix did. Look what they did. They brought in Chris Paul. One guy changed the whole culture of that organization from really bad to a winning organization. They went from 13th seed in the Western Conference to a number one, number two seed in the last 2 years. One great player with all the youngsters that they have around him to make the team better. And everybody keeps taking a shot at the Knicks with the whole DeRozan thing, that DeRozan went to Chicago. Even if DeRozan went to the Knicks, would DeRozan be doing the same thing in New York that he'd be doing in Chicago? We don't know that. I know a lot of people are saying, well, we could have DeRozan. DeRozan is playing great basketball. By the way, the last week he hasn't looked good against the good teams. We could go into the Brooklyn Nets and we could say what we all believe that they are. They're a top 2, top 3 team in all of the NBA. And to me right now, the favorites to winning the whole thing. The confidence of Kevin Durant right now, to me, the no doubt MVP of the league. As good as Steph Curry has been, as good as some of the other players that have played as well as he has, his numbers as a passer, as a wing defender, have been astronomically better.
Steph Curry's had a pretty bad slump the last 2 weeks. So.
He hurt his finger. He could be out for a significant amount of time as well. So if he's out for any significant amount of time, he has no chance of winning the MVP. So I look at where Kevin Durant is and where this team is for the Brooklyn Nets. they're obviously going to be the favorites coming out of the East. Now, as a New York fan, and there's a lot of Knicks fans out here, more than Net fans, there are probably more changed Knicks fans into Net fans because the Nets are a winning organization right now, and the Knicks, they have been a losing organization for the last 20 years. But the fact is, if the Knicks win a championship, it's like God's coming down and giving us a gift. And if the Brooklyn Nets come out and win a championship, they go through the city in their parades and stuff like that, I guarantee you it's not going to mean as much as if the Knicks won a championship.
Definitely not.
So I know Kevin Durant wanted to come to a big city. He wanted to win in New York and build his brand. He went to the wrong team, because if he went to the Knicks, now I know what you're going to say. All the fans, well, the Knicks didn't offer him anything. No, the Knicks didn't offer him anything because the Knicks didn't think he was going to be as good as he was before he tore his Achilles. Well, he has proven everybody wrong, even at his age, that he could still play at a top level and he could be one of the top 2, top 3 players in the league, which he's probably the number 1 player right now in all of the NBA. So you look at the position that the Nets are, and you look at the Knicks. The Knicks were a 4 seed last year. Now all of a sudden, what are they, 11, trying to look inside to make the playoffs? And then you have the Nets sitting at 1 or 2 right now. Completely dominated Chicago the other day. Chicago has not been the same team for the last couple of weeks.
They just got blown up by Golden State yesterday, too.
So I know their schedule's a little hard, but Chicago hasn't looked good. And now you're seeing Brooklyn create more dominance as an Eastern Conference team, because now Kyrie Irving is back. Now you've added your 3. And now, once Kyrie Irving figures things out and he gets his momentum and his ability to move the ball at the perimeter, I just think the Brooklyn Nets are going to be unstoppable. And with what I'm hearing right now, that the Nets can absolutely pay the fine, the small fine, to have Kyrie Irving play every single game for the rest of the season and not get his vaccination, I think that's where I think the Nets are going to move to, because why take him off the court when you need him on the court to really show your dominance as a team and make sure that teams are going to fear you when you go into the playoffs?